Good evening. It is August 18th, 2021, and it is 5:19, and this is our meeting of the Androscoggin County Commissioners. Would everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Commissioner Brian Ames is the only commissioner absent this evening. Let's move on to the accept and approve with a waiver of the reading of the minutes from the August 4th meeting.
Madam Chair, I move to accept and approve the minutes of our meeting August 4th, 2021.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Thank you. And any discussion?
Madam Chair. These minutes are inaccurate. It does not list the request for removal of the chair under future agenda items, section 10. Thank you.
Okay, a second to that change. That was in future agenda items.
Madam Chair, if you were going to request that for my request for changes, I would request you do that with all of the commissioners at all times, which I do not believe has always been necessary.
Okay, a second to the change of the minutes.
Was mentioned, so
Yes,
second.
it was. Thank you. It was. That's a fair change. Okay. Any other comments or
Do we have to
changes
vote
to
on
the
it, though?
meetings?
You have to vote on it?
Yeah, I guess we.
Objection if you want.
All right. Thank you. Are there any objections to changing the minutes to reflect that? Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I appreciate that sentiment, and I certainly appreciate that being seconded. However, I would just state as a matter of course, if that is visible on record, it shouldn't really take a vote to have to add what already transpired on there.
Okay.
So it's a dangerous precedent. If people are requesting things, they should be on there. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor of accepting the minutes as amended? Okay. Opposed? And that is 6-0. Okay, let's move on to the warrants, the manual warrants, and the payroll.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve manual warrants payroll 2128, 2129, 2130, 2205J, 2206J, and 2207J.
Okay, thank you. And a second.
Second.
Okay. And any questions for the treasurer or comments? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? I'm sorry, Mr. Poirier, I did not get yours. I'm sorry, thank you very much. I thought you might have, and I just didn't see you, so that's 5-1. And I believe I'm going to ask Commissioner Kelly, there's going to be you're requesting a change in
Yes.
the agenda.
We are fortunate to have Mayor Levesque of Auburn here with us this evening. I make a motion to amend our agenda, moving him from comments from the public to before reports, just in respect for his schedule.
You had another meeting you needed to go to, is that what okay.
Correct.
All right, and that's a motion. Second to changing the agenda to putting the mayor up on the,
Second.
thank you. And all in favor of moving, okay, opposed? All right,
I am opposed. I wish the minister reflect that I would make sure that we treat any public official the same way as we treated the public in the past, which sadly is not been fair. Thank you.
thank you. Mayor, thank you for coming. Yes, please.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for having me tonight, and commissioners, thank you again, especially Commissioner Kelly, for engaging in communication with me on this. I won't take up much of your time, and unfortunately I have a school committee meeting that I have to attend. Thankfully it is across the street. But I just want to give you a quick update on Auburn. This is something I was wanting to do pre-COVID-19, so we can open up better lines of communication between the commissioners, county staff, and elected officials in Auburn. So I thought it'd be good to start that off tonight, especially since we have a lot of weighted issues that I think you're taking up. I know we're taking up as we come out of COVID-19 and we are entering into this critical recovery phase, hopefully getting back, knock on wood, back to normal in a fairly quick amount of time. So, and then again, if there's any questions afterwards, I'd be happy to answer those as best as I possibly can. First of all, Auburn, just so you know, we're extremely happy with the relationship we have on the budget committee with the commissioners, with Mr. Post and staff. It's a good working relationship. We very, very much appreciate it. We've been all managing our own dilemmas through this pandemic, and again, like I said, we're coming out on the hopefully the good side of it. In Auburn, we've managed to keep our budgets pretty much flat and below the rate of inflation for the last 4 years. So we're moving in the right direction there. We appreciate the work that you've done on your budget process to help us achieve some of those higher end goals that we have. We're also at the same time keeping budgets the same, realigning staff, realigning our committees, realigning our permitting, eliminating regulations, and about 50% of our fees, streamlining how we do business, attracting more market rate buildings, and more economic development in the form of existing businesses that are growing and new businesses that are coming to town. I think it's pretty evident with the press if you're following it, which I know you are. That's just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to keep moving forward. We're also going to continue to reinvest in our in the quality of life aspects of what we do in Auburn, to our recreation department specifically, and our school department. I'll give you a couple of examples of how that benefits the county. Today we had a seniors picnic at the East Auburn Outlet. We polled the folks that were in attendance. Only 50% of them were actually from Auburn. So there were seniors there from all over the county, and it was actually kind of nice to talk with them all because they do look at Auburn as kind of that hub of social opportunity, economic opportunity, retail opportunity, and healthcare opportunities as well. So that's something that we're going to continue to focus on. You'll see on Union Street Bypass the building of a new futsal court. That's a new-ish sport for this region. There's only one other futsal court in Maine, in Portland. It's going to give another recreational avenue for our residents, not just in Auburn, but for the entire county. And that's my point. We, from a policy standpoint, we want to be able to provide those recreational, educational, and economic opportunities for everybody in the county and beyond, but primarily the county. As we reinvent the way we think, the way we fund, the way we look at attractions in a competitive market-based analysis format, the more we're convinced that there's a very sizable opportunity for Androscoggin County to be a leader in the state in sports tourism and quality of life. So I say that because as you start looking at ARPA funds, looking at community support for programs in your own respective communities, I would like to keep the lines of communication open so that we can discuss what Auburn's doing, how potentially the county can help, how it impacts county or surrounding towns within the county, and if it's a positive or not positive. And I think all too long we have looked at our own communities, all of them, in its own little shell, its own little ecosystem, without thought of how each one interplays with another, from transport to commerce to recreation and so forth. So there's going to be some programs that we bring to you for you to look at, and we hope relatively quickly that you look at these and you think about how they could fit in and how it fits in with all your constituents, and vice versa. If you have any ideas, if you have any partnerships, if you have anything that is going to, create economic sustainability for the county, promote economic growth and development, promote educational opportunities, provide economic opportunities where they don't exist. Airport's a regional asset. It may be called the Auburn-Williston Airport. It should probably be called the Androscoggin County Airport, if you ask me, because there's folks here from all over the county that use it, work there, and desperately need it, and there's more folks that could if we have the right type of smart capital investments. So if you have any ideas, and they fall within the borders of Auburn, or even if they don't, reach out to me, please. Okay, we want to be there for you. We want to have those relationships. So that's the first part of what I wanted to say. Second part is, as we're kind of going into this new future, we're seeing high levels of workforce need within the whole county. Nobody's averse to that. We're seeing wages go up, we're seeing inflation, we're seeing some negative effects from our recovery process. But we're also, finally, I think, recognizing and feeling the fact that Maine is the oldest state in the country with the lowest birth rate. Census data that's coming out now is kind of reinforcing that. I think it's challenging all elected officials throughout the state, and especially in Androscoggin County, to come up with new, creative ways of consolidating, of doing things smarter, doing things different, and not just different from a sense that we've never done that, but different from a sense of what models work around the country that are used effectively. And peeling apart kind of our own individual fiefdoms, if you would, and they exist in every level of government all over, even where you don't think they are sometimes. And how do we deliver the service for the best cost to the most people? So I guess, there we go, I'm back on. So with that said, I know you're talking about dispatch services, something that's extremely important. I come from a telecommunications background. I've had exposure to this type of services around the country, actually around the world. Economy of scale is critical. Being able to have consolidation, being able to save money, provide a better, more technologically advanced service, and also have mutual overflow and coverage in a streamlined fashion is going to save all of us, and not just money, but hopefully save our lives. And at the end of the day, it's hard to put a price on life, and I think that's what we all need to be thinking about, is delivering quality service, not just for now or next year, but for the decades to come. So I do think, and if you look at the demographics, Androscoggin is poised to have significant growth. We've already seen it, especially in the outlying towns away from Auburn and Lewiston. We'll have further growth both in town and out of town in the next decade. It's just a natural flow. So look at, and we're fairly supportive of this, look at proper governance. We'll work with you. I don't know the answers for governance, but I know there's some great models out there that we can all talk about and come up with a good solution for our unique county. So just want to thank you for those points and just bring that to your attention. If there's any questions, I don't know if that's allowed or not, your rules,
Absolutely.
but I'm here, ask.
Questions for the mayor?
No? We're very
Just,
good.
Madam Chair,
Chair.
just thank you for coming, Mr. Mayor. Great to see you, and great that you declare and invite us to have a ongoing good relationship. The relationship's already good, and I hope we continue with it. So nice. I appreciate that you came by.
No, I was going to stay longer, but now I have to go and then take the mayor's seat on the school board tonight. So that'll be my first school board meeting.
Good.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Larry.
Mayor Levesque, my comments are not directed at you personally, or just procedural issues that have been chronic at this commission. But my question for you is, have Sabattis, Lisbon, and Wales been part and invited and been given a seat at the table with these merger, this merger of the dispatch? Have they been given a seat at the table?
That's
Lewiston and Auburn.
That's definitely a question for respective chiefs, our sheriff, and a fellow Auburn resident and voter. And I can't answer that, but I know.
I'm getting this.
Huh?
I'm getting this sort of a deal.
No, you're getting honesty.
I'm not saying you, but but I've asked this question, I've got no answers.
No, you're getting an answer. Commissioner Larry, you're getting a very clear answer. I don't know.
Because I
That
think
is
I've asked
best.
the sheriff.
I will answer your question, honestly. I always answer a question. You have to ask the law enforcement professionals. I'd also direct that question to the director of 911 and the director of Lisbon 911 specifically. But yes, at this point, we're looking at it from a policy standpoint. We're looking at it from a functionality standpoint. And right now, we like what we see, and we're excited that the conversation is moving forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor
Very
Levesque.
much.
All right, we'll go back to the order of our agenda, and looking for a report from the Maine County Commissioners Association. I don't believe you had a meeting this week, did you? You did have a meeting?
I attended my first meeting on Wednesday, August 11th. We had a meeting regarding the risk management tool, and a notice was voted to send to Penobscot County regarding the loss of their prison license, I believe is what it's referred to, or suspended. And that by a policy, we have to notify them that because they lost their license, coverage will cease if not restored.
Yes.
So we had to properly, it's part of the policy to notify them that we covered you till you lost your license, and then we don't cover you. Yes, I understand that. The other thing, we did give them 10 days to correct that. I'm not sure if we have perhaps someone else can update if that's been rectified. The other thing that was brought up in that conversation from the county commission for Penobscot County is that they have been looking to replace their current jail. The costs that they have gotten is 88 to 100 million. So I bring that out only as a point of interest, but I was in total shock to hear that.
Yeah.
So that's what happened with the risk management pool meeting. Regarding the regular board meeting, Attorney James Cohen reported on the bills that were presented in Augusta. Some of them were, we lost, some we won, and I think by that what I'm trying to say is some of the bills that we supported, some that we did not support, so it was a mixed bag. For the most part, I think we did well because of our attorney being there. The complete list of all those bills, I believe, was being sent to you, Larry. Is that correct? Have you received it by any chance?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know if anybody wants to go through that whole Excel sheet, but yeah, I know. That's why I say that. I don't have a copy. The other thing that I was made aware of is that counties are having problems with retaining staff, or challenges, perhaps I should say, and that one of the things that they provide is a salary survey. I don't know if we've ever tapped into that, or how helpful that would be. I realize that the economic conditions in Androscoggin County are not the same as Waldo County or Cumberland County, so I'm not sure how well that survey is put together.
My colleagues just got together, the Maine Association of County Clerks, Administrators, and Managers, and did one of those surveys, and we just got it here very recently.
Okay. So it would be interesting to understand what their challenges are. I know Commissioner Isaiah questioned the salary increases that were being proposed in the budget. I think that might be a good tool for us to use to look to see what's happening out there. But again, because of staff shortages, there's something called an alert test, if I get that right. And that test is not done nearly as often as some of the individuals that were at that meeting express, because staffing is moving out and they're unable to replace people, forcing them into more overtime, and hopefully we don't get into that type of problem. The other item that was presented was they have a sample policy regarding remote meetings. So hopefully we can look at that also as we prepare.
And that will be coming within the next couple of meetings, as soon as we get to budget.
Okay. And then there was discussion regarding the jail funding formula. There was some challenges about that. Perhaps Eric can clarify it better than I, but I know there was something about 18 million versus 15 millions, and thanks to the attorney, the pot is being divided at the 18 million level, because apparently there was somebody trying to only divide 15 million and keep the other 3 that had been authorized by the state legislature. So I thought that was kind of interesting that the state had approved 18, but somehow they were only going to give out 15 of it until somebody stepped up, is the way I understood it on our behalf. And that's all I have to report. I don't know if Larry, if you want to say something about that, 18 versus 15.
No, I like the 15 versus and 3. Back when they were providing the supplemental funds at the beginning of the year, but then when you had to go through and count paper clips and prove it at the end of the year, which they've done this last couple of years, it wasn't as beneficial to Androscoggin County. So this particular time, at this particular moment, it was beneficial to us to just do it on the way they did.
Okay, thank you.
That completes my report.
All right, Central Maine Workforce Board.
I have nothing new at this time.
All right, we'll move on then to the treasurer's report.
Okay, at the end of July, all departments are remaining under budget, within budget. And right now, we should be, as far as percentage, at 58%. We're at 55% of the budget, so we are clearly under budget, which is excellent. For revenues, deeds and real estate tax fees continue to run over budget. So that money is still coming in. We've started to get tax payments here in August. It's not reflected in these reports because it's July, but so they've started to pass. And other than that, it's all looking, we're right on track. So that's it. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
And let's take the vote to accept the treasurer's report. Motion to accept the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed?
Respectfully opposed.
Okay, administrator's report.
In the interest of time, I will pretty much forego that. Obviously, been still working on budget, looking at ARP funds and trying to figure those all out as Clarice is doing. Reviewing the dispatch proposal again and so on, and just trying to keep it above there.
Okay, any questions for the administrator? All right. And let's go down to old business. We have the approval of the audit.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the audit as presented.
Second.
Kelly. Okay. Any last minute comment or question? I think this is our third meeting since the audit's been presented. Okay, all in favor of accepting the audits? Opposed?
Sally, no comments from the public, though.
Okay, thank you. I skipped over comments from the public because Mayor Levesque had presented earlier, but there may be some other comments from the public. So let me back up there a little bit. I apologize for that. I sort of crossed that out, put it up on my agenda. Dave, is he back there? Is there anyone on Zoom?
If they are on, we don't have the means at the moment to
Okay.
send them over.
Are there any comments from the public then? I'll wait just a second. Okay, let's then go back down to new business and the public safety space study report. And some of you may want to get to a place where you can see the screen. And I should have gotten your name ahead of the meeting.
It's Will Getchell. And Judy Johnson is sitting behind me. They're both from Harriman Associates.
I haven't had to use this since the pandemic, so.
Change the batteries. Or do like I do, just set the sign. Would you like someone to drive for you?
Let me just,
Can we
I
both-
actually do have a
Put
spare
it
set
on
of
the battery
batteries.
a little bit with an adapter.
My son's a Boy Scout, so if I'm not prepared, I feel like I've let him.
Doc, I'd be happy to stand against the slides for you.
Okay, I think we'll need that, yeah.
Which one? I'm all set. So basically, we completed task one of the space needs analysis. Spent all kinds of hours with Will and Judy through Zoom and through questions we had to answer about the operation. Basically covered everything. We reviewed the 2010, was it the 2010 Harriman report? The facilities report to compare what was the best use of our time. We brought everything back to the building committee to kind of go over, discuss, and from there, we figured we'd give you a synopsis of what's been identified so far, and Harriman, Will and Judy agreed to come in and present it. So that's what we're here for.
Great, thank you very much for the opportunity to present this. As the sheriff said, about 11 years ago, Harriman performed a facility analysis, so that really is a bricks and mortar assessment of the building to identify needs and issues in the facility. In the planning process to develop ideas and strategies for improving a facility, there are several steps that have to happen before the design is actually created, and this space needs assessment is one of them. And so it is not a design or even a concept or a determination of what actually has to be. It is a planning tool that identifies the square footage required to support safe and professional operations for the agency. And so what we're presenting tonight is a summary. We presented everything to the committee, which was much more detailed, and you'd want to poke your eyes out if you heard all the information. So we're going summary by division of all the spaces, and we also reviewed the existing plans to identify what spaces the sheriff's department occupies in the existing building. Yes.
No.
Okay.
It's a twitch.
And then so the other important thing is the identification of square footage is both current and future needs, because we don't want to plan for today. We want to assess what's needed today and then also plan for the future for square footage. Next slide, please. So these are just a snapshot of the 4 floors of the sheriff, the county courthouse building that we're in right now, and the sheriff's department occupies, if you include this room, 3 floors. If you don't include this room, 2 floors. We color coded the different spaces to help show the different types of uses and who's in what space. And so the kind of sum total of this is that the Sheriff's Department occupies just under 9,000 square feet in the existing courthouse building. And as you see graphically, the spaces that are colored, you start to understand that they're spread out kind of across different areas of the building. And they're also working within areas that have weird geometry, so not necessarily the best footprint to allow a specific use. Next slide, please. The other basic consideration that we needed to look at is if we go through the space needs assessment and find that the Sheriff's Department needs a lot more space, what is the opportunity to renovate and or add to this existing building? As we all know, we're in a downtown location. There's not a whole lot of extra area, so the free space, if you will, on this site totals just over 12,000 square feet. And actually, if it was turned into a building, there'd be no place to park. So that's another consideration. Next slide, please.
Place to park now.
So the basic highlights of our assessment, and we'll get into the actual numbers of the need in a couple of slides. But the basic assessment was that all these categories running down from top to bottom are the divisional categories that were included in the space needs assessment. So public air access lacked an appropriate waiting area for the public. soft interview room, which is a less formal and more inviting space for people to interact with the Sheriff's Department without having to actually go into the secure space. And also a community room, a kind of a hybrid meeting, training space that can also be utilized by the public. In administration, there wasn't a huge gap in square footage need. However, the layout is terrible. And so how the spaces, if you look at the numbers of square feet, it doesn't look that bad. However, the way that the space has to be used because of the existing building makes it very awkward and very ineffective. Records in traffic, which is really the public interfacing portion of the Sheriff's Department. There is staff and support need area, kind of a better dialogue directly with the public off of a better lobby space, and decent storage space is needed. Communications, it's been talked about here earlier in this meeting about dispatch, and so for this exercise, we gamed out the full regional dispatch floor and communications department. Again, this is just a planning tool. It's not saying that this is already happening. It's simply saying if this were to happen, what would the Sheriff's Department look like in terms of square footage? So we would need to add an additional 1,000 square feet to what's there to fully support the regional expansion. The patrol division really needs improved communal space for report writing, for deputies to come in and do their report work, as well as an officer in charge or OIC space. So there's kind of a shift command center throughout the 24-hour cycle. For training, in addition to things like a firing range or other in-house qualifying pieces of infrastructure that would allow the entire county to have a consolidated and singular place for public safety officials to qualify for training. Having a safe and clean ammunition and weapons cleaning area is lacking in this existing facility. For investigations, it's the Criminal Investigations Department, CID, or detectives. It's known by several different terms. There are earmarked spaces for offices. Some of them are actually not utilized yet. They're earmarked for renovation, so they're actually not habitable yet, usable yet. But mostly a good space to support interviews, a place for interviewees to wait, to use a dedicated toilet, to be near an interview room, and to have adjacency to a space for detectives and investigators to hear and listen to what's happening in the interview. All those items are severely lacking here. Property and evidence. There is a very informal evidence drop-off and processing area here now by virtue of the space that the department is in. So having a dedicated drop-off and processing area for sworn deputies to access, utilize, and properly move their evidence through the chain of custody, so it's better able to support cases and better able to support the prosecutor, as well as storage, as laws for keeping evidence longer, for cases and warrants where they're seizing firearms, the amount of square footage required for evidence storage continues to just increase year after year. So there's a huge lack of square footage for property and evidence. And then there's common facilities, having fitness area, is really important. The sheriff noted that a lot of his staff would actually utilize the fitness areas to not only for the training and qualification requirements they need to meet, but it would be an incentive to actually be at the station more and add to camaraderie, in better locker break areas. Again, just the professional support spaces that really help an agency or a group really thrive. And then site needs, as the sheriff mentioned, the parking area in Airfoot right now is woefully inadequate. So our square footage expands to the site. The sheriff's office is unique in the sense that it's a more decentralized organization. So you have sheriff's deputies, and their car is their office. They drive their car home and they bring it in. So any deputy from the entire county who's coming in to the department needs a place to park, during their shifts. So it's a larger fleet consideration, and as well as if dispatch is expanded regionally, that's another big expansion in parking need that would need to happen. And then lastly, just safely, we always recommend that there's planning to provide public parking separate from staff parking, which doesn't exist right now. Next slide, please. Do you have any comments?
There's things I could have elaborated on, but and the hard part is when we're doing this, whether it's Will, Judy, or even the building committee when they toured the building, there's certain things you don't want to speak of publicly because it affects the safety and security of those we employ. Could call into question integrity of the process when you're talking evidence things, but there's definite needs of improvement. We have long desired to get accredited through Maine Chiefs, and facilities wouldn't allow us to, in part because of safety with the current structure. So it's kind of hint on there. When you look at the evidence drop-off, we have areas that we store evidence. It just wouldn't follow. You wouldn't design what we have available to us for today's standards, even at the bare minimum. Other than being secure, it could raise questions with prosecution down the road with, like he spoke of, things that are required through the court process today. So a big chunk of the space that we identified, I would say, like right now, we have 367 square feet available, I believe, in the patrol office. We have 3 desks in there. We're supposed to have 163, 20, 480 square feet just for that. Not to mention 5 people work out of there. It's 160 per head. So we're not meeting that. So when you look at a large bulk of this, because I was kind of overwhelmed as we went on, they're like, oh my God. But a lot of it is, we don't have a training room now. We're asking for a training room. We don't have a gym, but yet we have 100 employees that want a gym. It's just things like that add up. And when you deal with the committee and when you talk to people in public, it's the norms for a public safety organization. And I jokingly, tongue-in-cheek, said, well, we've been here for 140 years. I don't think it's a stretch to say the next facility is going to last 140 years. So my attitude in working with Bill and Judy, with the building committee, is let's do it right and dot all the I's, cross all the T's. And things can be debated later as far as, but I believe a lot of, never mind what some might say is not realistic, but a lot of what you're seeing in here, what Will just went through, I believe is just traditional or the norm for the public safety market. As a matter of fact, some people actually had to talk me into feel comfortable asking for a gym and a locker room, and I was like, but then I reached out to all the employees to get them to participate, because I'm not a gym rat, and it's never been my thing. And I asked for input. What do you guys want to see? And what they wanted to see to equip it like that, whether it's paid for through the Benevolent Association or Union, but the square footage, I believe, was almost 1,200 square feet.
Something like that.
So when you start adding things up like that, but I do know it's, whether it was the 90s, 2000s, or the 2010s, it's been one of the high points of employees, and they talk about, and I mentioned it to Will, I'm like, yeah, they're talking about they'd be here more, there'd be more comfort, and you look for the camaraderie opportunities whenever you have the opportunity to create that. So, not something I'm But, you know, at the same time, it's diverse, Jim, we talked about that with the equipment mentioned. It might encourage more people to participate. You know, the people like me that might, you know. And then we have some workout warriors that would obviously use it. So it was really interesting going through the whole process. I mean, we were spending 2 hours at LAC, multiple days, going through it all. In the formats they had, it was very well worth the money spent. And unless you have questions about anything right here, I'm comfortable in moving on.
Okay, next slide, please. So here's a summary of the same breakdown on the left of the divisions. So the far left column is the existing, which is this calendar year. We always kind of put current need as the next calendar year, assuming you wouldn't magically just have a new facility. And so the second column from the left is a 2022. The next column over is 5 years out, and the right-hand column is 20 years out. And the 20 years is definitely more of kind of a hypothetical, but it's worth the exercise to try to understand what might be needed far in the future for space, additional space needs. Typically, the biggest delta is between your existing space and what you actually need today or next year, and that's because typically agencies have grown within a constrained environment and just legitimately need more square footage than they're operating out of, which is certainly the case here. This just gives a numerical quantification in comparison to the spaces. Now, all these square footage numbers are the total net square footage of each area. So they would include the inside of all of the rooms, closets, offices that are defined in a specific division. It does not include corridors or other public areas that are not program driven. It does not include the thickness of walls. We use something called a net to gross multiplier. So the net square footage is the usable required space. The gross square footage is what the entire building square footage would need to be to support all of that program. So as you see in the first blue horizontal band, it says building totals. You carry the total net square footage all the way to the right is 20,732. But then when you add circulation, stairs, elevators, wall thicknesses, all of that stuff, it goes up to 29,000. And so that's the total, the total of what the building would need. We talked about this site having 12,000 additional square feet to work with. We actually need, about at least 2 acres just to meet the basic requirement. But then when you gross that number to accommodate, zoning setbacks and other things which take a site and make portions unusable, we're really looking at a minimum of 3 acre site to be able to support this operation. One last thing before we go to the next slide is the discussion on a gym, or a fitness area. It's really interesting because that really kind of is almost like a soft skill type of category. There are a lot of aspects about a gym. That there's physical fitness, there's training, there's camaraderie, but being a first responder is an incredibly stressful job, and that's you could see that the fitness area as a very productive stress reduction mechanism. So there's some serious mental health and physical health benefits to some of these square footage numbers, and it's not just about it being an extra thing or a bonus thing. These are legitimately spaces and areas that these folks would really benefit.
And on that, I'll email all of you this presentation either tonight or probably tomorrow morning, so you'll have it and can look it over. But there was things in there that we had some great conversations with different members of the building committee on tours, about things they've seen across the state. There's a lot of things Androscoggin County doesn't participate in, specifically the Sheriff's Office. I can't talk about the rest of the organization, but and what it gave us a chance to do was really look at what's the best value here. We're looking at a long-term investment. So I have a big emphasis on training, whether it's offering training opportunities to the region, that benefits us because usually free tuition and things like that. We're a regional center, having the space available. Somebody else on the committee said, well, you don't have these groups that other counties do because you really don't have any community space. So we kind of incorporated the idea out of the secure part of the building to incorporate training room / community center / warming and cooling station, but it would basically give the public the opportunity to be involved or give us some opportunity to provide space for the public, and it would have dual uses while also being able to make it available to area departments through reserving the room because they're all paying for it. But in our line of work, recently I'm the coordinator through NAMI with setting up regional training. And especially during COVID, I've had to host it at East Auburn Baptist Church. I do it sometimes at Central Maine Community College. But finding the space and finding it for free is always a struggle. Having it available at a regional center and offering more trainings like through FBI LEDA, where basically it's like $700 a student to go, but if you host it, they give you 5 free spots. So there's some payoffs, but it's also the community support idea where you could have it not only for classrooms made available or made for use for any of the public safety organizations, but you could host community type events, big and small, senior groups, and have it available like a lot of small towns do, especially with the climate changes we've been dealing with as warming and cooling stations. So we really tried to figure out how can we stretch the use of all spaces, what's practical to incorporate in it, and what would benefit the agency and the communities we serve. And we had plenty of time, I think, to look, but I think that's the biggest thing that's kind of out of the context for us, but it seems to be the norm everywhere else you go, I guess is the best way to explain it. So a new facility with those things incorporated will also give us, I think, more opportunities for that community engagement that everybody wants. I think. At least we want it. And I'll be sure to email it to you all. Sorry I didn't in advance.
So we talked about the kind of the overall numbers, but here's the Reader's Digest version, if you will. The existing square footage we only list as net square feet because the building's shared with other groups, and we don't build buildings out of masonry completely anymore. So these massive thick walls, the grossing factor is insane in this building. It's terribly inefficient based on just the fact that it's 140 years old. And so we have the net and gross square footage here listed in the middle of the blue band for the building. And you can see that we're approaching a 12,000 square foot deficit in the existing facility compared to the current and future needs. And then similarly down below on site, we're about 2 3/4 acres shy of the space of the site to really be able to lay out a building properly and provide the parking, the setbacks, the offsets from the street, all that stuff to be able to support this facility. Next slide.
Oh, yeah, just, hi. On the lot size, is that assuming that the aim is a one-story structure?
Yes, it's applying the entire square footage, which is an excellent point because if you once you start stacking the building to 2 to 3 stories, the overall footprint reduces and your lot size would therefore reduce as well.
But the parking was always a consideration, not only for the public safety vehicles, but when you have like dispatchers on duty, change of shift, visitors to the building, training opportunities. So, and I know what you're saying, but a few years ago there was a lot available. Not a few years, probably 5 years ago, there was a lot available. I said, boy, that would be perfect for the public safety side. And ironically, it was a 3-acre lot because you could actually vision the building there and parking. That lot's gone, and I didn't really bring it up because it would have allowed no opportunity for the jail in the future, whether that's 10 years or 100 years from now. And there's, I think, 3 apartment buildings on it, which was Grace Lawn and Turner. Would have been a great spot for us, but everything happens for a reason. It wasn't meant to be. So, I actually wonder what it would look like when you take parking considerations for, staff working as dispatchers, change of shifts, the public safety vehicles here. I mean, during the protests we had, just better be safe than sorry, we had just received new vehicles, and I stored some at my house, other employees, because there was just no place to have them secure here. It takes up space. You always got to expect the unexpected, so minor part of this whole thing, but something to be aware of.
And when you're looking at the overall square footage need of a site, the setback actually typically occupies a considerable square footage value, as does the parking, and then the circulation from the road to the parking lot, and so and it's not just the parking stalls, but it's the zone in the middle to get in and out, and so whether you're stacking the building or not doesn't have as it doesn't cut the site in half for sure. It will have an impact, but it won't have a tremendous impact. So I think for where we are in the process, looking at 3 acres as a reasonable place to start is it's the right place to start from our opinion. Next slide, please. And so, no spoiler alert here. We've been bouncing the ball toward this point for the whole presentation, but is that this facility just does not support the sheriff's department, both from a square footage point of view, and again, the space needs is supposed to be devoid of bricks and mortar consideration, also of physical layout. It's really about just the square footage. But in this location, it's really difficult to separate the square footage deficits with the physical location. The patrol department is located in from a security-wise point of view, a pretty vulnerable location. Just to mention one of many, concerns about this particular building. So, our strong recommendation is to consider developing a new facility on a different site. And as the sheriff noted, there's the jail component, which was not part of this discussion. So, if it becomes part of the discussion, that needs its own assessment, it needs its own site consideration, and eventually, if they want to be together, those two considerations need to be brought together when looking for a site to support a new facility.
And what we discussed was task 2 in the proposal is kind of not called for, but we don't want to alter it too much to come back for reconsideration. But what we've asked to consider is considerations for not a jail today, but part of these exercises from finish to end would be incorporate the future needs of a jail in a site plan. Where we haven't had the detailed conversations about that, my hope is to save money there to be able to say, we're looking at, we'll say, a phase 1, a phase 2. Now, a jail could be built in 2 years or 100 years, but I think when we're looking at a site for the Public Safety Division, it would be a better investment if we consider the future needs of the jail. My opinion, it's what I would recommend going with, because 10 years from now, you don't want to be going through this whole thing to bring the whole agency back together. For now, the jail isn't needed to be replaced or considered as far as a hammer and nail project or shovel ready at all. So it wouldn't make sense to incorporate it. This can't go unaddressed. I just think we need to, as we move forward, give consideration to the jail down the road, and we'll be dividing the agency in two by having the public safety relocate, and then someday, maybe, there'll be a new jail built at that site.
Next slide, please, and I think so, like I said, this exercise is a planning step, and you can't design something if you don't know what you're designing for. So this gives us the how much and how much of what pieces. And so we would move forward in next steps to develop different blocking diagrams, start to study the adjacencies of the different divisions, what needs to be next to what, on the same floor, potentially on different floors, and we would game out several different options for review and consideration, and then start developing building blocking diagrams, because once you have a basic footprint, you can then start thinking about site, because you know about how big the overall footprint and shape would be. So those are our immediate, next steps that we hope to be able to move forward. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So
What cost are you looking at total at this point? I realize this is early, but I'm trying to wrap my head around. I'm hearing 88 million to 100 million for a jail. What would this be running us?
We've not gotten to that point at all. Where we've developed a square footage number, but we've not studied building size. We've not looked at stacking. We don't know how many floors. Does it have elevators? Does it not have elevators? Is it the full regional dispatch? Is it not? What's it made? What materials is it made of? We haven't gotten to those points yet, and all of those factors influence cost significantly. So we can't even put out a hypothetical at this point. It would not do service to the process.
So I'm sure would this be, I guess I would ask if you would consider not adding the conference center facilities and the training or the workout areas, the gym, whatever you want to call it. We have gyms in town. We could possibly look at some sort of a voucher system for our employees. And while I certainly want them to be able to relax, at the same time, sometimes people, at the end of the day, the last thing we want to do is hang out at work longer. So I would just propose that we not include those costs as well. And given the many restrictions that are coming back, I don't see much value in making another big space that where people won't really be allowed to use. Thank you.
Okay. Questions for, yes.
I just want to say thank you for coming and look forward to digesting your report. Some of it is a little bit surprising, but then again, I think we knew a lot about the deficiencies that we have for, the modern era of just office conditions and for the particular needs of law enforcement. So be interesting to look through it some more.
Very well.
Go ahead.
Having sat on the committee and heard the detail, one of the things that wasn't surprising, as I was mentioned, that we need more square footage, because we did a study 10 years ago which told us pretty much the same thing. So for us to, we keep kicking the ball down the road. Sooner or later we're going to have to face this. The costs will not be something comfortable, I understand that. But I do hope that when we do it, that we do look at a bigger lot, that we do look at the idea that expansion, you can never have too much land. I don't know that we know that problem exists here. We see it in other police facilities. The city of Auburn is being challenged by that right now. The city of Lewiston has the same challenge. So I do hope that when we go out there, that we understand that we need to look beyond even 5 years from now, but understand that it's this will require adequate space. Not building necessarily building for 20 years from now, but at least knowing that we won't be in a legal position.
I think we've discovered, whether it was through the jail inspection or through this exercise, it's been a hindrance being in the downtown, and there's no reason for it. It limits your opportunity. But we've talked about taking those things into consideration when we get to those steps. I think it's a long process, and your terminology is the exact I use. I tell the staff all the time, I just don't want to be the sheriff that kicks the can down the road for the next guy, because this is long overdue. I think sitting down, going through this exercise, it was really shocking for me how inadequate the facilities are. I might not be here to see it, because it could be 10 years down the road, could be 5 years down the road. But I think if we get the work in progress and and see where it takes us, and then between materials being delayed, labor shortages, they're building schools, you get put on a build list somewhere. It'll be interesting when it comes to fruition. I really appreciate that you guys agreed to pay the contracted cost for Harriman to go through the whole project, and I look forward to moving on to the next step and seeing where that goes, because Will and Judy have been great to work with so far. So.
Judy, well, what you'll hear from this board quite a bit is we don't have enough detail, we don't have enough information. When I got your report, I doubt we'll say that about your report. It's very detailed. When I got this afternoon, I thought I was going to read through it for tonight. Obviously, this is going to take some time. Thank you for all the detail, and it's very complete. It represents a lot of work, obviously, so I appreciate what you did.
I received the report and the PowerPoint in different emails, and I wasn't sure. Anyway, you'll all get a copy of the report. You'll all get a copy of the PowerPoint. I didn't know, like I told Will, I didn't know what he wanted me, so I shared it with the building committee in the chair, but I will be sure to send you all copies of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next item, I'm going to start off discussion items by saying that, or do you want to start? This is Commissioner Medora's last meeting after 4.5 years of service. He has moved out of the county, or is closing this next week, and has taken a new job with DHHS as the program financial operator, which doesn't surprise me. I think one thing I've always respected about Commissioner Medora is if I have a calculator in front of me, I can usually find a mistake. He's just got a mind for numbers, and he can look at a list of numbers and recognize something that doesn't add up from a distance. And his ability with finances and numbers will be missed on this board. And I appreciate it. Did you want to turn it over to you?
No, it's been, thank you for recognizing that. It's been a good run, and it's bittersweet leaving the board. And we certainly had some successes and a whole lot of challenges as a group and in our previous group. Don't really have any recommendations or whatever, parting words, but it's been nice to work with most of you. And wish you the best, and I think that's about it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I wish we had one more meeting. I was hoping to get to the equivalent of at least a three-legged cougar that we could
Oh, yeah.
not a cake or something. So
Yeah, did you
kind of disappointed we got a short notice on the whole thing.
I'm not going too far.
I really appreciated your institutional knowledge that you acquired so quickly over the years as a commissioner, and your whole background and the overall context that you held in your work that you did. So I appreciate that contribution and your commitment to the county, and I'm sure you'll do well up in Augusta. Wish you the best with that.
Much appreciated.
Okay, any other discussion items?
Madam Chair. I was just wanting to ask, I will not reference the contents, but this legal advice has me concerned. If my concerns that are raised accurately and legitimately in my motion request are true, how is a commissioner able to deal with an issue of executive session being used illegally?
I didn't write the opinion.
Okay, but I do need to know that, because just as a question of decorum, which will probably be raised, how, if I am stating my concerns that I believe it was illegally held under illegal uses of non-applicable sections of 4056C, how are commissioners able to deal with the issue if it's always kept under a cloak? Because this is an issue that needs to be addressed, and using lawyers is not appropriate. When I asked for an answer to you, Madam Chair, by letter, requesting you explain the legal right for you to threaten me with somewhere between a felony or misdemeanor when I raised concerns in executive session, that is not right. How can you have people able to blow the whistle if something is wrong, if they're threatened, and you've never once, including when that lawyer was there, provided documentation of statute references of where there is between a felony or misdemeanor if someone discloses something in executive session, especially if it was potentially illegal, and there is evidence to be shown.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. I believe an avenue for addressing a citizen or a representative's concern about a group having used executive session inappropriately is for a civil suit. I think that's one of the only avenues that you can do. And our attorney came here and did talk to us about the consequences of that, and it's a very minor fine. But that being said, I think our attorney, when she spoke publicly, we spoke privately, I guess. Either way, when our executive session that was had was very legitimate, and to continue to interrupt the meeting to say that it wasn't is damaging to the county's credibility and your credibility.
Please keep your comments to the commissioner.
So I think it's
To
unfortunate.
specific commissioners. Madam
Okay.
Chair, point of order. Madam Chair, I also request a copy, Mr. Post, request a copy of both of the previous workshops, not the budget workshop that we just had last meeting or the county commission meeting, but the video recording of the workshops that were held. And I would also point out that this can also be raised with the ombudsman.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Madam Chair, I would point out that the governor has now decided, taking up on your ability to allow commissioners to bring up concerns that they have, the governor has now decided to mandate people take a vaccine or an injection that is still under experimental use. Regardless of whether it's under experimental use or not, there is a huge freedom question. When I raised concerns here as a county commission to take steps, at least within our own employees, that was refuted due to the idea, as one commissioner put it, that the commissioner, myself, was looking for a fight where there is no fight. I would just ask the commission to consider this is coming now, and it will be here before we know it. The next thing will not just be the nurses who are already overstaffed or overtaxed and overworked years before this pandemic because of healthcare reform, but now are being even slammed even further. If this is such a good idea, the governor and the federal government does not have to mandate it to get people to take it. This will be here before we know it. In fact, it may already apply to some of our personnel. So I'd ask the commission to really seriously consider, where will you draw the line when things are being demanded that are unconstitutional? This isn't something that has to go before a judge, but we can take stands. Or are we just going to do whatever OSHA tells us to do, even if this is violating people's personal, physical, medical sovereignty? We need to really draw a line. It's a common sense thing that is even talked of in self-defense, of drawing a line and saying, at this point, I need to take action to protect my family or myself. So that's something that I believe is taught in law enforcement, and I think that we as a commission need to really seriously consider, where will we draw the line to protect our staff? Because making them get an injection in the name of protecting them by firing them if they don't is not protecting them. Thank you.
Okay, other discussion items? Okay, let's move on to future agenda items.
Madam Chair, I request that you add my motion, which was already submitted. I saw the comment that it wasn't what agenda was described. I've never seen that ever used before where I have to specify which meeting, the next meeting.
That wasn't
Please
from
add
me.
that.
I don't know why you're directing that
But
to
I'm
me.
asking for that to be added to the next commission meeting agenda. And all of those items are respectfully open for the public and should be allowed. I've sent the letter to you. I sent it within the proper amount of time. I sent it to the commission so they have plenty of time to review it. I requested it be added. I requested it to be added in full again. Thank you. The bylaws require it.
I think it's probably, well, you know what? I'm not going to comment. I said that all of these items are going to go through the vice chair. So I'm going to,
Madam Chair,
Move
the
that
request
to
is to
you.
put the item on the agenda. The item to what, remove the chair?
Yes, the item to remove the chair.
but
Okay.
is this going to be a matter of consideration before we do that? The letter from the attorney that's in your packet?
I think
I
that
haven't
it
had a
probably
real
should be,
chance to.
shouldn't it?
But
Should be a
actually, I'm going to
consideration.
push back and,
Was there a vote for the board to
Well,
consider that beforehand?
the motion to remove the chair has nothing to do with this letter on its own. This may be background information. I'm not particularly interested in having that on the agenda. Is anyone else?
Madam Chair, I would point out that it's not an issue of whether, well, you asked, is anyone else? I'm anyone. If it is requested, which it has been last meeting, it is required by the bylaws to add it.
No, it
So
isn't.
that is per the bylaws. Mr.
No,
Post,
it
you're
isn't.
not the arbiter of our bylaws, so I would just respectfully state this is required by the bylaws. If
No,
you
it
start
isn't.
ignoring
Where in the bylaws does it request it? Does it say that?
I already put it on the
What's
letter requiring, give me a minute.
Verbatim?
Do I need to quote every part of the bylaws? I've done that for years and it's always
yeah,
been somewhere
don't
around-
speak to
I
her
said
like
either handle it or
that.
don't
Do
handle
not,
it.
since I'm not the chair, now I can be a commissioner. Do not speak to her like that, ever again.
The comment
Do
was
not,
made
no,
inappropriate,
listen to me.
Madam
Do
Chair.
not speak to her like that again.
Don't speak to me like.
Do
that.
not
You're in
speak
executive
to her
session.
like that again.
Do not have to be in executive session, Madam Chair.
If I may, we have people here that have been waiting for budget presentations for
This won't take long. I don't care what the bylaws say. I'm opposed to that being on the agenda. Who's putting it on the agenda? Is the chair?
If it's
This
legal,
is a failure
Well-
to do so.
they
With-
can't put it on
okay.
the agenda.
I move, if so, I move we overrule the chair and not put it on the agenda.
Well, in any case,
Have there been discussions?
Discussions outside of this.
Excuse me, have the floor, sir.
in any case, Commissioner Ames wanted, requested, to be present.
Well, he's not present, and I
No.
object to it being on the agenda. If it's not in the
No,
agenda,
I'm-
it should be no item to him.
There's,
Yeah.
there's no mechanism in the bylaws to allow you to do that respectfully. You can vote to table it, you can vote to table it to an indefinite time, but the action to try to use the lawyer first, which has been quite common that the lawyers want to
Where
get
is the line
involved.
that says the bylaw is required to be on the agenda? Can you find that?
Give me one moment, please.
Terry Rowland had his hand up.
As I
Yes,
recall, it
Commissioner
says,
Boyer?
as I recall, Madam Chair, the bylaws say that the chair shall not unreasonably withhold placing an item on the agenda. So, but if we overrule the chair acting, then the chair has a reason.
Commissioner Poirier?
Due to the confidential document that we received, it clearly states that Commissioner Lair can be given the choice of resubmitting his motion without the confidential material, and I think that is the answer that we need to
All
have.
right, fine.
We
Put it on the
need-
agenda.
We need the
If-
motion rewritten to be in compliance with the law based on the advice that we received from our attorney. So we are dependent on our attorney to protect us. And if our attorney is telling us that we can't discuss this unless it's written correctly, we're not putting it on the agenda because we don't want it on the agenda. We simply cannot put it on the agenda based on the service of our attorney. I don't know what else we can do but wait. for it to be in compliance before it is placed on the agenda.
We've actually,
Actually ignored legal advice before, and it's the same game that's happened where the lawyer gave information to several people, and it was never shared with the rest of the commission until it was
Yeah.
used against myself, a commissioner. And I can show
We can
you
remove the chair
video
anytime, whether it's
documentation of that.
president or not.
And there was another commissioner who backed up my statements, and it wasn't
Put it
me.
on the agenda.
But it is worth sharing. This is inappropriate. This is hiding from what was, I believe, illegal use of the county executive session. So it's a good way to keep it out of sight, but it's not right. And it's framing mischief by the law.
Madam Chair, is the question before us whether or not, there is a request before us to put on the agenda for next meeting, and vote to remove the chair. That's all we're really talking about, right?
Yep.
Okay, so why don't we just put it on the agenda for the next meeting? Brian will be here and everyone will be happy.
Yeah, and I think that our expectation will be that you resubmit.
No,
Your motion.
It's documenting what I believe is illegal behavior.
What you
It
believe
needs-
is the key word.
Yes, that's right, but I have, would the commission have preferred me to go to some other source to address this issue, or would the commission have preferred me to raise it here? I've raised it with the commission first, and waited and waited and waited to finally get legal response. And now I see the bylaws twisted again, once again, to try to keep this vote from being held. If there's nothing to hide, then bring it out into the light.
Okay. Is the agenda item to be the removal of the chair? Pure and simple?
Correct.
Okay, fine, that's separate from all this. Put the removal of the chair, please, on the agenda. We'll vote yes or no on that, and then whatever all this stuff's about, we can handle that separately.
Yes, Commissioner Ford.
Just to clarify, are we saying the motion, I do not want to vote on the motion that was accepted, or was presented to us, excuse me, not accepted, presented to us, based on the attorney's advice. I just can't take advice from our attorney that says it needs to be rewritten. If we don't rewrite it, we can't look at that motion next meeting.
I'm a delinquent here because I guess I missed the last meeting, but I'm talking simply about a motion to be in the agenda, which is always in order. I don't even know if it has to be on an agenda, if it could be done right now, but let's put a motion on the agenda to remove the chair. That's a specific item. The rest of this auxiliary stuff can be handled differently. A pure and simple motion to have the chair removed is not complicated by any aspects of confidentiality or anything else. Unless the discussion leads into that, but the pure, simple motion to remove the chair should be put on the agenda without any delay, because it's a question of power and it's always in order.
You know,
The rest of it I have no comment on.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I would ask you to ask legal counsel to,
I didn't-
Madam Vice Chair,
there
I would ask you
wasn't-
to
I
ask
didn't ask
legal
legal
counsel
counsel.
where it is written that it is somewhere between felony or misdemeanor for revealing information in executive session. I've requested this information,
That's a
still
separate
have yet to receive that documentation. So commissioners should never be threatened or request an apology from Commissioner Christopher for threatening me. That is wrong, Madam Chair.
Yep.
Yes, Commissioner Medora.
Chair, I think...
No,
I think on the next
move
meeting,
move
we should put on the agenda
No,
that
move on.
we, to purchase a commissioner, a bouquet of black roses
Madam Chair,
as
this
his
is
apology,
inappropriate.
as his apology for
Okay,
offending him, because
stop.
I don't know how it's gonna go
You can
away.
use the example, Madam
Like, you know
Chair.
what,
This would be a really good example.
what's the resolution? An apology, a check, flowers,
Don't tell
what
me to shut up.
what do
That's
we
very
want?
rude, Madam Chair. That's quite decorous, quite leadership-wise.
Yes,
Moving on.
you're right. it
Okay,
wasn't.
moving on.
You're right, it was wrong.
Moving on, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
It'd be unanimous.
Six.
Opposed?
Can we have 5 minutes before budget meeting?
Everybody's here. Let me know when you're ready. Okay.
So, Larry does the commissioner's budget,
Okay.
human resources budget.
Okay.
You can start.
Okay. I call the meeting to order. It is 6:45 on August 18th, 2021, the second session of our Commissioners' Budget presentation. Will you all please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All commissioners are present with the exception of Brian Ames and Commissioner Noel Madore. First item on our agenda is Section 1020, Commissioners. Mr. Post?
Okay, I would ask Amy from Manpower to come up, but except that my